On the night of December 2nd, 1984, the Union Carbide pesticide plant in Bhopal, India, was running on a skeleton crew at 4 minutes past midnight. An underground storage tank ruptured, venting 42 tons of methyl isocyanate, an extremely toxic industrial chemical, directly into the winter air. The facility lacked a safe buffer zone directly adjacent to the plants. Perimeter fence were densely populated informal settlements, housing thousands of day laborers and railway workers. The Indian government's official death toll stands at 3,787. However, independent researchers and local medical personnel place a number of immediate casualties closer to 15,000 when the gas spread. The victims had no evacuation plan and no warning. Their vulnerability was geographic, and that geography was dictated by economics. The poorest residents lived closest to the hazard. In corporate postmortems, the Bhopal disaster is frequently framed as a tragic anomaly, an unforeseeable accident, or the work of a rogue actor. The forensic record shows the rupture was a result of documented cost-cutting directives originating from corporate leadership in the United States. 5 years later, a legal settlement was designed to shield the multinational parent company from future liability. This investigation will examine the mechanics of systemic impunity, the legal and financial architecture used to insulate multinational parent companies from the risks of their foreign operations. Bhopal serves as a case study in how global corporate structures successfully build firewalls against catastrophic liability. Methyl isocyanate, or mic, is highly volatile. If it comes into direct contact with water, it triggers an exothermic reaction, generating tremendous heat and pressure. Upon contact with the human body, the chemical attacks the eyes and the respiratory tract inside the lungs. It causes acute inflammation and fluid accumulation, a condition known as pulmonary edema, where the victim effectively drowns from the inside. Union Carbide knew the risks. In 1982, an internal safety audit conducted by an American team identified 10 major hazards at the Bhopal facility. These identified safety issues were never resolved. This diagram shows how Tank 610 was designed to operate. It stored the methyl isocyanate safely by relying on 3 redundant safety systems: a refrigeration unit, a gas scrubber, and a SL tower. When water entered the tank on December 2nd, the first offense failed. A refrigeration unit, which should have kept the chemical cooled to reduce volatility, had been switched off weeks earlier as a corporate cost-cutting measure. The expanding gas pushed into the scrubber system designed to neutralize it with caustic soda, but the scrubber was offline for maintenance. The final fail-safe was the flare tower built to burn off escaping gas. It, too, was non-operational. At roughly 12:04 a.m., the pressure relief valve buckled with all 3 safety layers. Disabled 42 tons of toxic gas vented directly into the city. The rupture resulted directly from the decision to disable 3 redundant safety layers simultaneously to meet budget targets. In the years following the leak, Union Carbide invested heavily in an alternate explanation. They claimed a disgruntled employee intentionally connected a water hose to the tank. This sabotage theory was legally strategic. If a single rogue worker was responsible, the American corporate leadership could not be held financially culpable. Independent scientists and Indian government investigators analyzed the plant and rejected the sabotage claim. Their forensic analysis determined that water entered the tank during a routine pipe washing operation, leaking through faulty and improperly isolated pipework. This physical failure traces directly back to the plant's declining operational standards, deferred maintenance, ignored internal warnings, and the replacement of experienced technicians with less trained staff. The physical evidence proves systemic corporate negligence, dismantling the sabotage theory used as the company's primary shield. Within hours, Bhopal's main government facility, Haim Hospital, received thousands of choking patients. The medical staff were completely overwhelmed. Doctors did not know what chemical they were treating. Union Carbide delayed releasing toxicological data and reportedly informed Indian authorities that the gas was merely an irritant, leaving medical staff operating blindly while their patients suffocated. 5 years later, the legal reckoning took place at the Indian Supreme Court. This chart compares Union Carbide's multi-billion-dollar annual revenue to the final settlement. The company agreed to pay $470 million in exchange. The court granted them blanket immunity from all civil and criminal liability when divided among the victims. That payout calculates out to an average of roughly $500 per death claim. Union Carbide chairman Warren Anderson flew to India days after the disaster, was briefly arrested, released on bail, and left the country. He lived out his retirement in the United States, successfully evading multiple extradition requests until his death. The 1989 settlement functioned as a calculated fee paid to legally sever the American parent company from its liabilities in the developing world. The disaster did not end in 1984. The industrial site was abandoned, but never properly decontaminated. When Dow Chemical acquired Union Carbide in 2001, it explicitly refused to accept any liability for the Bhopal site or fund its cleanup. This map illustrates findings from independent health organizations. It shows toxic waste left on the site, leaching into the groundwater with contamination zones steadily expanding outward into surrounding communities over the decades. The result is a severe multi-generational public health crisis. Studies report statistically significant elevations in cancer rates, birth defects, and developmental disorders in children born decades after the initial leak. Bhopal remains an active epidemiological crisis, sustained by 40 years of corporate inaction. In 2010, 26 years after the DA leak, an Indian court delivered its final verdict. 7 former Indian employees were convicted of negligence. They received sentences of 2 years in prison and were fined roughly $200 each. All 7 were released on bail the very same day. Not a single executive from the American parent company ever faced a day in prison. Consider how the legal, medical, and financial responses would have unfolded if 42 tons of toxic gas had blanketed a wealthy American suburb instead of central India. Bhopal demonstrates that in global manufacturing, the geographic distance between corporate headquarters and production facilities directly correlates with the devaluation of human life.